A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. Today I have with me a very special guest. He's a former Stanford lecturer and the author of two bestsellers, namely The Hooked and Indistractable. His theories are pretty profound and help companies make sense and logic of internal triggers of basic human psychology. Am I right, Nir?
Well, it's really about behavioral design, helping companies create the type of products and services that people use because they want to, not because they have to. So we can use these type of technologies to build good habits in our lives. And my second book is about how we can break the bad habits. How do we make sure that we don't constantly get distracted by some of these bad habits?
Why would you do that? Why would you do the contra of, a book that you wrote to help companies?
Well, I think we can have our cake and eat it too.
You think so?
Yeah, that we can use technology to build good habits in our lives. Nobody's getting addicted to educational software. Nobody's getting, addicted to, SaaS software or enterprise software. Those products need people to design the kind of products and services that are more engaging, because most technology companies design products that are really hard to use. So we can use these techniques to build good products, to form good habits. But then when it comes to some of the products that we overuse, we can use some of the same techniques to break the hooks that we don't want in our lives. And so that's what Indistractable is about.
Right. To simplify what you really mean by the hook for the uninitiated and people who haven't read your book, could you break that down on what the hook is and how can companies use the hook formula to design and create better products?
Sure. So the hooked model is an experience designed to connect the user's problem to your product with enough frequency to form a habit. And it's through successive cycles through these hooks. This is how customer preferences are shaped, how our tastes are formed, and how these habits take hold. And so it's really about designing a user experience in a very formulaic way. And this formula is something that I uncovered by looking at some of the world's most habit-forming products, like Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter and Slack and Snapchat. And I noticed the same 4 common steps was designed into the experience of all of these products.
Okay, which are?
So the 4 basic steps are the trigger, the action, the reward, and the investment. And these 4 steps we find repeat themselves again and again in all sorts of habit-forming products.
So if you just look at the examples you've just cited, which is basically the social behemoths, could you break that down into what are the key triggers within these platforms?
Sure.
So that because everybody has a Facebook account, is on Twitter, has an Instagram account, so it would be easy to relate.
Sure. So what's your habit? Do you have a habit with any of these technologies? What's your favorite?
It might be unconscious.
Which one do you use a lot?
I use all of them.
Okay, so let's take Facebook for example. So Facebook will start with an external trigger. It's a ping or ding on your phone. Somebody sent you a notification, or maybe there's some kind of alert that your friend did something on Facebook. That's the external trigger. So then it leads to the action. The action is the simplest behavior done in anticipation of reward. It's opening the app and scrolling the feed. That's it. As soon as you do that, there's what's called the variable reward, where there's this uncertainty, this mystery, what we call a variable reward that keeps us engaged. And then finally, the last step is the investment phase, where we put something into the product to make it better and better with use. And that's really revolutionary, because we find that habit-forming products, as opposed to products that are made out of atoms as opposed to bits, products in the physical world depreciate. So the more we use them, the less they're worth. We use them up, right? That's what depreciation is all about.
Sure.
But habit-forming products, the more we use them, they appreciate. They get better and better because we store value in them.
And these would be basically tech.
Data, content, reputation. It could even be something to the fact that you go to the same barber and he remembers your name and have a little history together. The fact that you've invested in that relationship makes you more likely to come back in the future.
So I'll come back to that. So when you say that there are certain products which are habit forming and hence appreciate, unlike most products, an example of that would be Facebook, would be Instagram, right?
Yeah, the more you use it, the more valuable it becomes to you.
And the more invested you're in the app, then you don't have that much motivation to step off. Right. If that is the case, are you then suggesting that companies such as Facebook, apps like Instagram, WhatsApp even, or even Twitter are here to stay forever and will never be redundant?
No, so it doesn't mean, just because you have a habit now, it doesn't mean that people are puppets on a string, right? Okay. That we're not stupid.
Okay.
That if a product doesn't serve us, I think we see this happening right now with Facebook. People are starting to question if this is really something that's good in my life. people aren't stupid. They decide to not use it, or they use some kind of alternative, or they use it less, or they hack back the technology in a way that serves them as opposed to them serving it. So that's what Indistractable is all about. Some people will tell you, well, we have to go extreme. Stop playing video games. Stop on Facebook. Stop using YouTube. I don't think that's very practical, and I don't think we have to do that. I think what we have to do is to use these tools in a way that is mindful, that we make sure that they serve us as opposed to us serving them.
Right. You've said several times that people suffering from depression, or for that matter, people who, that negative emotions, tend more towards actually habit formation. Or, for instance, you've given the example of that people who are depressed check mail more often. In this case, it may be you check your Facebook feed or your Instagram or whatever else. How did you make that correlation, and what does that really tell us?
So all human behavior is prompted by the desire to escape discomfort. Everything we do.
And seek pleasure or no?
So even pleasure, the desire to seek pleasure, is itself psychologically destabilizing. So wanting, craving, desire, lusting is the reason we say love hurts. Because neurologically, everything is about the desire to escape discomfort, even the pursuit of pleasurable sensations. So this is called the homeostatic response. In the body, we feel this all the time. If we go outside and it's cold, the brain says, ooh, this is uncomfortable, put on a coat. If we walk back inside, now it's too hot, the brain says, this is uncomfortable, take it off. So that homeostatic response gets us to do things physiologically.
So you're saying everything we do is basically to avoid discomfort.
Right.
If that is what you're stating, then in your own example where you say that, love hurts, but most people play the game of love. But the fact that initially the game of love is a lot of anxiety, so that is also discomfort.
Right.
So why doesn't our body tell us not to play the game, and then there would be no love in the world?
Right. Because the discomfort of doing is less than the discomfort of not doing. So the fact that we want, that we crave, that's what gets us to do the action. Remember, the brain doesn't do what feels good, the brain does what felt good. So the way the reward system works in the brain is that the brain is encoded with a memory of something that felt good, something that provided pleasure in the past, and then to get us to do it again, the brain creates this desirous response, this craving, this itch, this wanting. And that's what drives us to the behavior.
And you're saying this particular itch or craving or desire is not in our control at all?
Oh, it's absolutely in our control. So the feeling is not in our control any more than if you have a desire to cough or to sneeze, you can't control the desire, but you absolutely can control how you respond to the desire. So the internal trigger is there. Loneliness, uncertainty, fatigue, stress, anxiety. This is part of being a human being. Now how you respond to it is up to you.
Okay, and what do you say? Most people give in to their internal triggers.
It depends, right? I mean, suffering is nothing new. We've been struggling with this problem of human suffering for thousands and thousands of years. Plato talked about akrasia, the tendency that we have to do things against our better interests, 2,500 years ago.
Which is what I wanted to come to next, which is, you've stated several times in different places that although we know what is best for us, we don't abide by it always.
Not always, but a lot of times we do. Right.
Sure.
So we're pretty smart over the long term. We can make mistakes in the short term, but if we so desire, one of the mantras in the book, I think if you summarized Indistractable in one sentence, it's that the antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. The antidote to impulsiveness is forethought. That there is no impulse that we can't overcome if we plan ahead. So if you leave it to the last moment, you're going to give in. If the chocolate cake is on the fork, you're going to eat it. If the cigarette is lit, you're going to smoke it. If the cell phone is on your nightstand, it's going to be the first thing you reach for in the morning.
So what you're stating is,
That's too late. You have to plan ahead. And if you plan ahead, this is something that our species is the only one that can do. No other animal on the face of the earth can see the future like we can. And so if you have a problem with what distraction is an impulse control problem. So there's no impulse we can't overcome by simply knowing that we are likely to encounter that distraction and take steps now so that we don't get distracted later.
So let me move back to Hooked.
Okay.
Since you have stated that all behavior is prompted by escaping discomfort, and you've said that how tech companies change behavior and change people's behavior on a day-to-day basis. What do you think would be the key insights one must draw from these examples and these insights that you have brought to the fore for regular brands who are looking to deeply engage their consumer but are finding it hard to engage with today's rather distracted consumer?
Yeah. Well, if you don't have some kind of competitive moat around your business, then you're fighting on price and features, right? So if you don't have, whether it's intellectual property or brand or economies of scale or habit, you're just fighting price and features all day long, right? And so you're just being undercut by your competition. However, if you have some kind of competition and some kind of moat that prevents the competition from taking your customer, that's where you have excess returns, right? That's where you see companies making a lot of profit because they have you have some kind of way to keep the competition out. And there are many ways to do that. The kind I research is habit, that if a customer goes to your product with little or no conscious thought, they don't even consider the competition. Take Google, for example, right? When was the last time you thought to yourself, I wonder which search engine is best?
Sure.
You don't even ask yourself this. It turns out that Bing, the #2 search engine, is just as good. Third-party studies show people can't tell a difference if they don't see the brand. But we don't even give the competition a chance. We go Google it with little or no conscious thought, purely out of habit, no other good reason.
Okay, so tell me, while all the examples we're discussing are tech-enabled or somewhere in the digital space, if I would have to take you back to the good old brick and mortar days, give me some insights for companies which have physical products in terms of what they can do to ensure habit formation.
Yeah. So there are many products that are habit forming offline. I think the opportunity to create habits has now expanded with interactive technology because many products that didn't have all 4 steps now can.
Okay.
So for principally the investment phase, the fact that a product, most businesses would give customers, here's our product, everybody gets the same product, it doesn't matter who you are, this is what we make, buy it or don't buy it. Whereas now what we see companies can customize, and every company today is an interactive company, right? Every company has at least a website. So there's opportunities to customize products for particular customers. If not the product, then the customer experience around that product. But all sorts of products can create habits, impulses to do a behavior with little or no conscious thought. If you want a real offline example, take spectator sports. Why do we have loyalty to one particular cricket team or football team? Is that because we're really thinking to ourselves, I really want to think, yesterday I supported this team, but now I want to support the other team? No, it's habitual. It's part of our identity. It's our impulsive reaction to support this team versus the other team. And it's not purely rational. It's something that's just about inertia. And you'll find that actually there's the same 4 steps of the hook model. There's the variability. If you think about spectator sports, what makes sports fun to watch is the variability. It's not as much fun to watch a game that's been recorded that you know the outcome. You want to watch the game where you don't know who's going to win. That's a variable reward. It's just like a slot machine or the Facebook newsfeed. The investment of the more gear I buy and the t-shirts and the clothing and all that stuff that I begin to associate, that's all forms of investment in that identity around that particular habit of mine.
You have talked about a very interesting phenomenon, if I may call it that, which was quite new to me. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but you talked about something called Nucleus accumbens. Explain that to me simplistically for my own benefit and my audience, and tell me how that really goes back into understanding, how the consumer psyche works and how we behave.
So the nucleus accumbens is the center of the reward system in the brain. And there were studies done on the nucleus accumbens actually by accident in the 1940s by 2 researchers by the name of Olds and Milner. They inserted an electrode into the brains of lab animals, and they let these lab animals stimulate this part of the brain every time they pushed a lever. And what they discovered was when they could activate this part of the brain, they wanted to do nothing but activate again and again and again.
But what would happen when the brain got activated?
So this would create this wanting reflex that they could only satiate by stimulating again and again and again and again.
So they would just sit all day and keep pressing that button, doing nothing at all?
They would run across painful electrified grids. They would forgo food and water just to continue to self-stimulate this part of the brain. And that was an extreme version, right, where there was an electrical current stimulating that part of the brain and releasing dopamine. Whereas if this isn't something that you have to put electrodes in people's brains to do. We do this to ourselves every day. Luxury goods, certain junk foods, certain chemicals that we ingest, and of course our technology. All of these things activate the same part of the brain. It doesn't mean it's mind control. It doesn't even mean it's addictive per se, but it does mean it is engaging. It causes us to focus. It causes us to engage on that particular activity.
Okay, and how do brands or manufacturers ensure they use this phenomenon to benefit them?
Yeah, so what we see is that if you really want to spike activity in the nucleus accumbens, you have to create an anticipatory response. That activity in the nucleus accumbens spikes right before something good is going to happen.
Ah, okay.
Not when we get pleasure, not when we get the thing that we want.
Okay.
But right before
so
we
you're
get the thing
saying
we want.
it's about the chase.
It's about the anticipation, exactly.
Ah, okay.
Exactly.
So as as an individual who understands this so well and is also an expert of sorts, what is your brand? Where does your brand loyalty lie? What are the brands that you're loyal to?
So I'm very big into technology.
Okay.
And so I use every gizmo and doodad that is out there. And there are many products that would be tough for me to switch away from. I mean, I think the best example is probably the iPhone, right?
Okay.
That I use it so many times per day, whether it's to tracking fitness or communicating with my family or learning a new language. I mean, it's become such an indispensable device that that would be tough.
But would I be right to assume that you're also loyal in terms of your clothing, your accessories, or are you neutral there?
Okay, I'll tell you one example, interestingly enough, of a company that, because you mentioned clothing. Actually, the suit I'm wearing right now and the shirt I'm wearing is by a company called Indochino.
Okay.
And Indochino has a really interesting model where the model for buying professional wear used to be, as of a few years ago, you go to a store and you look through all the items and you hope this fits. Maybe it probably takes you 4 hours to find something. You probably have to go to 3 different stores, and you have to look through all this merchandise. At Indochino, there's no merchandise. You go into a store and you cannot buy anything because they don't have any stock.
Oh.
You go to the store and it's all tailored. So and this is not a new model, but it's a new twist on this model. Here's what's different. You go in for a fitting and they measure you. And then this is a company in the United States, they make it overseas. I don't know where they make it. And then they ship it directly to your home. Now, where this is different is that because you've invested in that measurement session.
Yeah, it's true.
The investment means that now forever, unless your measurements change if you gain weight or lose weight, but for the most part your measurements stay the same, now you can order with one click.
Online.
Online. Now you don't have to go to the store ever again. You see a million different patterns and you can get anything you want in exactly your size because of the investment. That's that critical 4th step of the hook. Now I'm loyal for life because now I would have to do all that work of the measuring session and all that someplace else.
Right.
So it's not worth it.
Wow, interesting. And
even if they had a better price, honestly, even if some other company had a better price, now I got to go do the measurement again and the fitting. And I know this company fits me right because they have all my measurements.
They changed their model recently.
It's a fairly new company, probably 3 or 4 years old.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. When you've talked about 3 types of variable rewards, right? For my benefit and for my audience, can you explain what do you mean by 3 types of variable rewards, and how can we relate to them and understand them to better serve and hook our consumers?
So there are 3 types of these variable rewards. Are these kind of it's the 3rd step of the hook model. It's something uncertain, some bit of mystery, some kind of uncertainty that engages the user and has some bit of surprise for them to come back to.
Sure.
And so there are 3 types of variable rewards. We have what's called rewards of the tribe, which is this variable reward that comes from other people.
Which is what, recognition?
It's relationships, competition, cooperation, any kind of experience where it feels good, comes from another person, and has this variability, this bit of mystery. It's what makes romance romantic. It's what makes friendship fun. It's the uncertainty, it's the variability. If someone's boring, you don't want to hang around with them. So whether that's through a product experience, some kind of community, an online experience, that's where you get these rewards of the tribe. The next type of variable reward is rewards of the hunt. This is about the search for material goods, money, or even information. So what makes the news interesting? Why do people want to read today's news? Why is the first three letters of news N-E-W, new? Because people want what they don't know, right? It's about the uncertainty. It's about the drama. It's about what did this person say and what happened here and what is new that I don't know. Nobody wants yesterday's news or next week's news, right? We have to pay somebody to haul away the newspapers. But we always want the new thing because it's variable. There's uncertainty there. There's mystery.
Right.
And then the last type of variable reward is rewards of the self. And this is about the search for mastery, consistency, competency, and control. It's about the search for things that are not information or material rewards. This is about this sense of mastery.
Like spiritual?
Not necessarily. It can be. It's about getting to the next level, the next accomplishment, the next achievement. So video games are a great example of this, right? You're not winning anything. You're not getting paid to play a video game. Many times you don't play a game with a friend even, if you're playing Candy Crush or Angry Birds or whatever. But why do we play? Because there's that variability around getting to the next achievement, the next level. And even if you don't play video games, it's what makes email so habit-forming. Email is probably the mother of habit-forming technology because there's uncertainty. Every time you check email, who's it from? What does it say? Is it urgent? Is it good news? Is it bad news? There's all this variability that the only way to know is to check. And so those are the three types of variable rewards.
So basically, if you had to map this entire concept in terms of romance, right? It would essentially be the same concept what we know in love or wooing in love, which would be that, one has to chase, and the chasing period is the most exciting period because once you land in a relationship, then you're not that excited anymore.
Right.
It's the same concept.
It can be, right? If a couple is infatuated with each other during their early stages of pursuit, there's the will he like me and what is she going to think? That's where you get the flutters in your stomach and that's where it's very exciting because of all the variability. And then as the couple ages, I've been married for 18 years, it's not the same.
Sure.
But you have other things. It becomes variability around what are we going to do about the kids and what are we going to do about the house and the mortgage and all the other stuff that if you can cooperate as a team, what's reinforcing in a romantic relationship is in fact not the mundane, okay, same thing every day, but can we get through a problem together? That becomes the variability, and that's where you see a strengthening of bonds, is when a couple can go through adversity and surprise themselves that they're healthier on the other end of that adversity.
Sure. So just to sum up what you've said for the benefit of my audience is essentially think through and keep the variability prolonged to ensure that your consumer is hooked. Of course, have a good product.
Well, it's really about all four steps.
Oh,
so the very first and most important step is understanding the internal trigger. Is what's the psychological itch that your product is scratching? If we don't know that first and foremost, it's very hard to build.
And you're saying
a
most
product.
companies don't form that.
Most companies, they say, okay, what are we making here? We're making this very functional product that does this thing, as opposed to backing up and saying, yeah, but what's the psychological need there? If you're too focused on, we make wrenches to turn this, and that's too narrow,
Sure.
and you're only going to make that product. Whereas if you increase your aperture and can see bigger into what's the psychological need I'm addressing, that's where you start to understand, oh wait, maybe there's innovative ways to scratch that same itch. It's like that saying that people don't want a hammer, they want to hang a picture on the wall, right? That if you only say, okay, we just make hammers, you might not see the innovation opportunities to hang a picture on the wall in a creative new way.
Right. Okay, that's trigger.
Yeah, so that would be the internal trigger.
Yeah.
The next step is the action,
Sure.
to make the action as easy as possible to do. Far too many companies insert way too much friction in between the customer recognizing the need and the relief of that discomfort. That's innovation in a nutshell. All innovation is simply about shortening the distance between the recognition of the need and the satisfaction of that need. That's what innovation does, shortening that distance, reducing the friction.
Give me one example so we can...
Think about what it used to be like if you wanted to read a book, you had to go to the bookstore or go to the library and go check out a book or pay for it. Well, now in 2 clicks you can have it on your phone through a Kindle. You can start reading. Well, what has happened, or even better, audiobooks. You don't even have to read the book; it'll be read to you.
Yeah.
So we've seen, at least in the United States, I don't know about the statistics in
here too,
India,
here too.
audiobooks have just taken off like crazy.
That's just telling you that humans are becoming lazier and lazier.
more convenient, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we do that past generations would think that we're living in the space age, right? They're like, can you imagine, to these days that, we could communicate over thousands of miles basically for free over it's amazing.
True.
And so sometimes we have to take a step back and realize that this is pretty incredible stuff that we have here, very powerful technology. And we do have a need to reduce friction in our lives, right? To make things as easy as possible. And if you can do that for customers, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Got it.
Then the third step is the variable reward. To give people what they came for, to scratch that internal trigger, to scratch that itch, but yet leave them wanting more. This bit of uncertainty, this bit of mystery around what they might find the next time they engage with you. And then finally, and the most overlooked, is the investment phase, which we talked about earlier. Is the customer putting in data, content, reputation, followers? Are they doing something that makes the product better and better with use? And these are 4 steps that pretty much any business can utilize.
Okay, fair point. Yeah. I think all these 4 steps need some thinking through.
Yeah.
But
I wrote a whole book about it, so you can. There's a lot more.
Fair point. Thank you so much, Nir. This was truly my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.